Hey, thanks for checking out this video. My name is Charlie. I go by the Wrestling Dad 149 on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube now. I started making videos fairly seriously about a year ago on TikTok and had some success and developed a little bit of a following. And I've recently, in the last couple months, started making videos on YouTube. And I ordered some new stuff. I ordered a couple lights and I'm getting a mic in the next couple days. So hopefully my audio improves drastically. But I just basically wanted to make a video tonight just to play with my new toys. So I'm just going to give some information about my thoughts about the upcoming season, some of the coaching changes going on in NCAA wrestling right now, what might or might not be going on with Gable Stevenson as far as his WWE career and his future in international wrestling, and whatever else comes into my mind. I know there was talk today on Flow Wrestling. Ben Askren and Christian Piles had a question they were answering about basically wealthy families, or is it is wrestling being dominated by wealthy families at this point? And I think it's a pretty interesting question because I work at a Title I school, so I feel like I have maybe not like a unique perspective, but at least a perspective of where, hey, I work with some kids who are not at a super high socioeconomic status, and I just feel like I have some thoughts on that. So I'll share those as well. So if you have not already, please like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. It helps the channel out a ton. So I'd really appreciate it if you were able to do any of those three things. I'm obviously off script here tonight. I usually kind of script out my videos a little bit. So I'm sorry if I'm rambling. But here we go. So the number one thing I want to talk about, I guess, is we're really, it's September, it's about mid-September right now, so we're really kind of getting into the throes of the preseason. I'm a high school coach, so that's really what I try to focus on is getting my team ready as far as wrestling goes at this point in the year. So we've got our open mats at the high school going. We do 3 times a week. We open the room up for about an hour and 15 minutes, let the kids come in and roll around, and we've had great numbers thus far this year. In past years, we've had 10 or less kids, or, I'd be really happy with 15 kids showing up. On the first day, we had over 30. Today, we had about 20, I think it was 22 kids. So that's a good number rolling into our second week of open mats. And so this is the point in the year when I get real excited as a coach. I'm not sure how a lot of other coaches are, but there's a ton of planning, at least for me, that goes in. So I'm not sure what other coaches are doing, but I'm trying to make sure I get some fun activities, especially this year, bumped into our season, getting fundraisers set up, earning money for the team so that we can, get some new toys, get some new training equipment, pay for some of the fun activities that we might do. And I always like to pay for a lot of meals and stuff for the kids post weigh-in. So we got to definitely fundraise hard. So I'm getting a lot of that stuff organized right now. And I just get really excited about the season at this time of the year. I like seeing the kids come in on the mat. I like to wrestle around with the kids. I just have a lot of fun doing those things. And every preseason, I really get a really positive vibe going. I'm really excited for the year. As I think a lot of the wrestlers are too. So I'm excited for our team. I think we have some incoming kids that could be really, really great. We have at least one kid who is a state place winner here in Illinois in the middle school circuit. So that's always nice to have someone coming in who has he was a 2-time place. He took 3rd 2 years in a row, actually. So it's always great to have someone like that come in and join your program who's going to be able to hopefully contribute, pretty quick and has a pretty solid skill set from the middle school levels. So actually, we have 2 kids. We have another kid who he took 2nd in the state. I can't believe I forgot that. So anyway, that's awesome. A couple other state qualifiers. So we got a nice group coming in. I'm excited about our team. I've got some cool stuff planned that I haven't planned before. Some different things interwoven in the season. So I feel like as a coach every year, I feel like I get a little bit better, a little bit smarter. So I'm excited for this year and what's coming up. I changed up our schedule a bit for the season. I feel like for me as a coach, I'm never ever satisfied with the way the schedule goes. I always want to make some changes. We were in some tournaments that just weren't doing our team any good. So I try to make some adjustments there and change up some of our tournaments this year. So I'm hoping that it'll be better for our guys as far as building their skill sets, building their confidence, and getting them some different matches. We're going to travel a little bit more this year to get some different competitions, so we're not seeing the same teams all the time. So for a coach, preseason it's a really fun, exciting time. You're just pushing out a lot of positive thoughts and hoping that good things are going to come your way and give your guys opportunities to train. And then a big thing that I'm trying to push more and more and more, and I've always been this way. Because this is how I kind of developed my love for wrestling and a lot of my skills, was you got to get out and go to an elite club. You got to wrestle with some really, really good kids if you want to be really, really good. So I'm pushing some of our more dedicated kids to make sure that they're out doing that. We've got a couple kids doing that, so that's fantastic. But you want to get out there. You want different coaches. You just want other people showing you different things. There's different techniques, different ways of doing things. And sometimes hearing the guy you see in the hallway every day, the way he says things isn't really landing for you, or you're just not connecting with everything the way that you want to. And hearing it from somebody else who really knows this sport as well can sometimes make those things click, and all of a sudden now you're off to the races and you've really jumped levels because you have other coaches. So I always think getting other coaches, getting advice from other guys, learning different moves, it's definitely a necessity if you want to be an elite wrestler. So that's kind of where I'm at with the preseason. I can't wait to kick things off in November and get rolling, but moving on, there's a bunch of coaching changes in the NCAA that have kind of really, I don't know if it's that, I guess it's unusual because it's so late. I mean, the school year's already started, so for coaches to kind of be jumping around at this point, I feel like is a little unusual. And then the coaches that have moved have kind of been coaches that have been at institutions for a long time, and it's kind of surprising to see those changes occur. And it kind of kicked off, if my memory is correct, with Escobedo leaving Oklahoma State I think he took a position at USA Wrestling. So that had Coleman Scott, who was a national champ for Oklahoma State, move back out to Oklahoma State to assist John Smith. And a lot of people are thinking that Coleman Scott will take over as the head coach because he did such a fantastic job over at North Carolina. That caused Rob Cole, who was the head coach at Cornell for like 20 years, I think, or maybe more than 20, or right around 20. He left Cornell 2 years ago to go to Stanford. And that was kind of a surprising move when it happened. So for him then to leave Stanford and come to North Carolina wasn't totally surprising because he was a national champion for North Carolina. So a lot of people had him pegged right away to be the guy to take over North Carolina. But, it's kind of, a little bit crazy. I guess Rob Cole's a little bit older. His kids are grown. It's not like he's moving his family around with him. He's got like kids in high school or middle school who don't want to move like that. But he went from New York to California, and now he's moving to North Carolina. So, I was at Who's Number One. I was actually fortunate enough to be there in person. And Rob Cole, I think, was announced like Thursday or Friday as the North Carolina head coach. And there he was at Who's Number One with his North Carolina stuff on, ready to get on the recruiting trail and get some new guys over to North Carolina. So, so that opened up the Stanford job. So Rob Cole from Stanford to North Carolina. And now just announced, I think today or maybe yesterday, Chris Ayers, who was the head coach at Princeton for 18 years, is now in September, a month away from the season beginning, going to move to Stanford. So the thing that kind of perplexes me, and I have to admit I'm a little bit more of a casual fan when it comes to coaching changes and transfers and that kind of thing. It just doesn't interest me as much as maybe it interests other people. So I'm very casual about it. It doesn't take up a lot of my thought process when guys are transferring or coaches are moving. Um, so I don't understand what the draw of Stanford is, especially since they dropped the program in 2020. They were going to cut the program. Obviously, they got it reinstated. And these coaches who have been at these institutions for decades are now deciding to leave to go to Stanford. So the only thing that makes sense to me is that they are just going to like pay them a buttload of money to come over there and be the coach. Because two coaches now are moving across the country to be at Stanford, which is to me something that sounds like not a stable wrestling situation if they dropped the program just a couple of years ago. But obviously these guys would not move if that was correct. If it was not a stable position, if they didn't feel they were going to have some sort of job security, they would not be moving. So I know I'm wrong. I just don't know why I'm wrong or what is telling those coaches that, hey, this is a good move. You'll be fine. And you know what? It's going to be better for you long term as far as, your financial compensation. And I don't know that if that is something that has really ever been clarified, so it would just be interesting to hear from Ayers or from Cole exactly like what was the draw to go to Stanford. Cole, I think, was a little bit over the things that were going on at Cornell. I guess politically, you might say, as far as like some of the issues they were having with COVID and I think they sat an extra year. The Ivies did, and I think Cornell was pushing pretty hard about the COVID protocols, and that's as far into that as I want to get. But I think Cole was a little bit ready to leave, more than maybe Chris Ayers was. So now that obviously the Princeton job is open, so I think people are talking about maybe possibly Joe Dubuque taking over. I think that would be really cool. Joe Dubuque, I think, was the first ever NCAA champion I ever watched wrestle. Because he's a 125 pounder at Indiana, and I was watching the NCAAs, and he's the first matchup. So that would be cool just to kind of see that guy, get this kind of a position, take over a program that just had their first national champ maybe ever, or in like 50 or 60 years or something. I can't remember what it was, but that would be just awesome for that guy. There's also talk that maybe the entire staff or big chunks of the Princeton staff might move out to Stanford. So we'll see what happens with that. It'll be interesting to see what Princeton does. Chris Ayers did such a fantastic job over there building that program up. And so if they don't hire within and they hire somebody else, this kind of coaching change 1 month before the college season kicks off could continue. So definitely some interesting stuff with the NCAAs at this point. The next thing I want to get into is Gable Stevenson and WWE and his world team spot and just everything going on with that. Obviously, he announced, a few days ago, a week ago, that he would not be competing at the World Championships. Most people assumed, and as do I, that WWE kind of put the halt on it after he had a not-so-great in-ring debut at the Great American Bash, which is a premium live event from the WWE. Gable's on NXT, which is known as the the developmental brand. So they have Raw, they have SmackDown, and then NXT is like developmental. It's kind of their guy, the up and comers who are kind of still learning the ropes of that business. So interestingly, Gable kind of pulls out of the World Championships officially. It sounds like Mason Parris was aware a couple weeks prior that this was going to happen. So Mason Parris has been prepared, has had time to prepare for the World Championships. So he's going to be in good shape. He's going to be ready to go. I'm excited for Mason. I hope that he can come home with a medal. I'd love to see him come home with a gold medal, obviously. But going back to Gable, he pulled out of the World Championships, and then they removed him from the NXT roster. So getting removed from a roster in WWE is not like a death sentence. Obviously, it could be if guys quit, guys or girls quit, or they move different brands, or it could just be that they are going to be pulled from TV for a little while. That's maybe where my mind is going, is that it's possible they might want to pull Gable from TV and kind of rethink everything that's going on with him, because I don't think it was necessarily Gable's in-ring work or anything functionally that Gable's doing as a professional wrestler that was really bad. I think Gable's gimmick was not getting over because it was like a ripoff of Kurt Angle. You're never, like, I'm not the biggest professional wrestling fan, but I know enough about it to know that you are not going to have a second coming of Kurt Angle. And I don't think that Gable Steveson is a second coming of Kurt Angle. I think he's a totally different guy. When they brought Brock Lesnar in, he was not this, hey, national champion NCAA wrestler guy. He was the beast. He was the next big thing. Like, he was this unstoppable machine because he had a great look. He obviously had a great amateur background, is what professional wrestling fans would call it. And he was kind of promoted as this like unstoppable monster, what they would call a monster heel in professional wrestling. And I think that they brought Gable out, and Kurt Angle was a heel also. That means bad guy, if you're not familiar. He came out kind of like this, not even sarcastic, but just this rude, stuck-up jerk who thought he was better than everyone because he was an Olympic champion. And they brought Gable out as this like white meat baby face, smiling, and like I'm a Olympic champion, and isn't everybody having fun? And this is, I'm gonna win, and this is gonna be such a great time. And that is just not Gable Steveson. He needs to come out, and I think Gable needs to be a heel. He needs to be a bad guy if he's going to continue to be a professional wrestler. I think to get over with the fan base, he's got to be a bad guy because that fits his style a little bit more. That fits his personality. In my opinion, it seemed like he liked being a bully on the wrestling mat. He liked when people maybe didn't like how he was, competing. I don't know, maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but he liked when he could kind of bully guys around the mat a little bit. He probably liked getting a few boos here and there in the NCAA wrestling. So I think they're pulling Gable off TV. My hope is they're pulling him off TV to kind of give him some time to continue to develop, and also to maybe redo his gimmick. Give him a new gimmick. Make him Gable with the volume turned up to 10. Make him more of a bad guy. The other concern with Gable and the WWE in general is today, this day that I'm making this video, September 12th, 2023, WWE was sold to Endeavor, which is the company that actually also owns the UFC. So, it's a public company, but Vince McMahon, I believe, owned like 51% of the shares or whatever, however that works. He sold a majority shares to Endeavor. Endeavor now owns WWE. They are the owners of WWE. Vince McMahon has owned WWE since like 1983. He has owned it for like 40 years. He has been the guy running the show, making all of the decisions, doing everything, all the creative decisions, Everything went through Vince McMahon. He ran that company like his baby, which it was his baby and is his baby. But he was kind of like the CEO of like a corporation, but the minute detail that he would go into and how much he wanted to actually be a part and run everything was huge. So anytime a company like that is sold, from what I've heard, is they make pretty major cuts. So things like a marketing department, right? Endeavor probably has a marketing department, whereas WWE also has a marketing department. So do these companies need two marketing departments? Probably not. So a bunch of the marketing people that work for WWE they're probably going to have some layoffs in that area, right? Endeavor is going to look at those rosters and say, is there any bloat in these rosters that we can maybe cut some fat and get some people out of here? And when you look at Gable, and I know we all love Gable because he's our Olympic champion, he's did such a phenomenal job in the NCAAs, like he's a guy that we could see winning medals for years and years and years. But from a professional wrestling standpoint, when you look at Gable, he might be a guy that could be easily cut because he's had one match and it went really, really poorly. He's been signed to the WWE for a while now. And if there are professional wrestling people who look at Gable and say, he really hasn't improve the way that we were expecting, or he's not getting over the way that we had hoped, he could be a guy on the roster that could possibly get cut. So I think there should be a little heightened level of concern over the next couple of weeks about Gable's ability to stay hopefully employed with the WWE. And that's the choice that Gable has made. He wants to be a professional wrestler. He's in the WWE. He's in the the biggest organization in the world. So I am super supportive of that. And he's obviously always going to have a spot to come home to and compete for world championships and Olympic championships. But he kind of made the decision that maybe he wanted to try some other things too. So I just really hope that that he doesn't get cut, and that he'll continue this venture and have a lot of success in the WWE. But unfortunately, there is reason to kind of be a little bit concerned about that. But him being removed from the roster, I guess, is my major point, is not a huge reason to be concerned necessarily. I think those guys those rosters get moved around quite a bit. It does not necessarily mean that, hey, we're gonna let you go and cut your contract. All right, I'm having some technical difficulties right now, so I'm not going to be able to speak about my thoughts on wealthy kids or wealthy families having a much larger advantage than other kids who maybe come from lower socioeconomic status right now. I'm just going to end the video here. I really appreciate it if you made it this long and listened to all my ramblings. I hope that they made sense. I hope my points were getting across pretty clearly. Thank you for watching. Again, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. It really does help the channel out a ton. And I hope to see you on the next one. Have a great one.